He doesn't say it out loud, and he might not even realize it himself, but his soul is already reaching for you. Before the words come, before he fully understands what he's feeling, love begins to speak in whispers, in contradictions, in the quiet moments when his heart reacts faster than his mind. If you pay close attention, you'll see it. He's more in love with you than he knows. And here's how you'll know. When a man is more in love with you than he consciously realizes, his unconscious mind often becomes the stage where his true feelings begin to play out. He may not yet have articulated his emotions to himself, let alone to you, but those feelings still find expression in subtle, symbolic, and often surprising ways. One of the most telling signs is the unconscious projection of desire. When he starts to reflect his own inner longing onto you or onto moments shared with you, without being aware of what he's doing. This projection can manifest through gestures that appear irrational, intense, or oddly timed. You might notice him going out of his way to do small things for you, things that seem unnecessary or out of character. He may offer help without being asked, or pay attention to tiny details of your life that others miss. On the surface, it may appear as kindness or attentiveness, but underneath, there's an emotional investment he hasn't yet examined. His unconscious begins to act out what his conscious mind is not yet ready to process, and you become a mirror for his own deeper feelings. The complexity of this experience lies in the fact that he doesn't fully recognize the source of his behavior. In psychological terms, desire that lives in the unconscious often needs an external object, a person or situation, on which it can project itself. That projection can show up in sudden intensity, like feeling unexpectedly possessive, or in subtle cues like lingering glances, thoughtful pauses, or overanalyzing things you say. He may find himself ruminating about you long after the interaction has ended, not understanding why you occupy his thoughts so persistently. These are not signs of surface-level attraction. They stem from a deeper emotional current that is beginning to stir within him. At times, he may even surprise himself with his reactions. You might casually mention someone else showing interest in you, and he reacts with disproportionate emotion, irritation, sarcasm, or a quiet withdrawal. He likely won't understand why he feels that way. He might justify it with logic, pretending it's about principle or protecting a friendship, but it is the unconscious expressing something much older and more primal. His affection for you has not yet been fully integrated into his self-awareness, so it slips through in moments he can't fully control. In many cases, this unconscious desire reveals itself through his sensitivity to your emotional state. He might intuitively know when something is off, even when you try to hide it. He might feel affected by your sadness, elated by your joy, and strangely disrupted when you pull away. He may dismiss these reactions or attempt to minimize them, but his inner world is already entangled with yours in a way that goes far beyond friendship or casual connection. His deeper psyche begins to treat your wishes as intertwined with his own, though he may not consciously admit it. This kind of projection is not about fantasy or idealization. It is more instinctive, more symbolic. He does not see you as a perfect image, but rather as a container for emotions he hasn't yet named. Through you, his psyche begins to express yearning, tenderness, and vulnerability. These are not deliberate actions. They are spontaneous eruptions of the truth he has yet to recognize. He may not say he loves you, he may not even believe it himself, but his unconscious already knows, and it speaks in the only language it can: gesture, reaction, tone, and symbol. When you witness these signs, you're not just observing attraction, You're witnessing the early stages of a profound emotional awakening that has not yet risen to the surface of his awareness. When a man is falling more deeply in love than he realizes, one of the most telling indicators is the emergence of contradictory behaviors. These inconsistencies are not deliberate or manipulative. They are expressions of internal conflict, where one part of him longs for emotional closeness, while another part resists it out of fear, uncertainty, or unprocessed emotional history. This push and pull creates a behavioral pattern that can appear confusing from the outside. One moment he may seem distant or cold, and the next he becomes unexpectedly warm, protective, or even vulnerable. These fluctuations are not random. They reflect the tension between conscious resistance and unconscious longing. The ego often seeks to protect itself from perceived danger, and emotional intimacy can feel threatening when a man is not fully aware of how deeply he feels. If he has experienced pain, rejection, or abandonment in past relationships, his conscious mind may try to maintain a sense of control by suppressing attachment. Yet despite this effort, his unconscious continues to act out the desire for connection, so he may create distance with silence or sarcasm, only to return later with unexpected kindness, attempts to reconnect, or expressions of care that seem to come out of nowhere. He may say he's too busy to talk, yet still find ways to check in on you or remember details that show how much he's been thinking about you. These contradictions are not about dishonesty. They are signs of inner fragmentation. He is not yet whole in his understanding of how he feels. One part of him is awake to the bond forming between you, while another part is trying to deny it, downplay it, or avoid the vulnerability that comes with it. This duality creates a cycle of emotional distancing, followed by closeness. Often, right after an emotionally charged moment or a shared vulnerable conversation, he may retreat. The emotional intensity unsettles him because it touches a part of his inner world that he hasn't explored fully. Yet he returns, again and again, drawn to the very thing that unsettles him. You may notice moments where he seems to test the boundaries between you, provoking mild conflict or trying to see how you'll respond to his emotional retreat. These moments are not meant to hurt you, but serve as unconscious defense mechanisms. They give him a temporary sense of control, a way to step back and reassert emotional distance when closeness feels overwhelming. But these retreats rarely last. He finds his way back to you through shared memories, unresolved feelings, or a sense of emotional gravity that pulls him toward you even when his mind says he should resist. This inner conflict may also show in his language. He may speak in half-statements, suggesting closeness, but leaving it vague. He may talk about how special you are to him, only to add a quick disclaimer to neutralize the intimacy of the moment. He may laugh things off that clearly matter to him, trying to keep the interaction light, even when his body language and tone betray deeper emotion. These conflicting signals are not signs of a lack of interest, but evidence of a psychological process unfolding beneath the surface. His psyche is wrestling with the depth of connection he is starting to feel, even if he cannot fully name or understand it yet. It is in these contradictions that the truth of his feelings often hides. The very fact that he struggles to behave consistently around you means something profound is being stirred within him. Consistency is easy when emotions are shallow. It is the presence of real emotion that causes disruption. Love in its early, unconscious stages often creates dissonance because it challenges the inner balance he's built. He may not realize it yet, but the emotional waves he experiences around you are not confusion, they are awakening, and the signs of love are hidden not in perfect clarity, but in the struggle between resistance and surrender. When a man is unconsciously falling in love, one of the most subtle yet powerful signs is his tendency to mirror your behavior and become increasingly fascinated with your essence. This is not a calculated move to impress or imitate. Rather, it emerges from an instinctive psychological resonance. He begins to reflect parts of you unconsciously. Your gestures, speech patterns, emotional responses, or even interest. Without realizing it, he aligns more closely with your emotional and energetic rhythms, and this alignment is not forced. It comes from the psyche responding to something deeply familiar and meaningful, something that feels like a reflection of his inner world. This mirroring is not simply mimicry. It stems from a much deeper psychological mechanism, where his unconscious recognizes in you something he may not even know he's seeking. There is a sense of belonging or familiarity that compels him toward you. He may begin to adopt your phrases or mimic your expressions, not because he is trying to copy, but because his mind is absorbing your presence at a symbolic level. The more time he spends near you, the more your essence seems to live within him. This internalization happens gradually and quietly, but it signifies that you are occupying a significant emotional space in his psyche. His fascination with you may seem subtle at first, but it reveals itself in the way he listens when you speak, the way his focus sharpens when you express yourself, and how deeply he remembers what you say. He may find himself drawn to the things you care about, not as an act of flattery, but because his emotional attachment naturally pulls him into your world, your favorite music, your ideas, your philosophies, even your humor. These become points of curiosity, as if through knowing more about what you love, he can feel closer to your inner landscape. He may not be aware that this curiosity is a sign of emotional investment, but the depth and consistency of his interest speak volumes. At times, he may catch himself noticing your habits, your moods, or your unspoken reactions. He tunes into your silences, your glances, and the space between your words. This attentiveness is not conscious strategy. It arises from an emotional attunement that goes beyond logic. He senses your energy before your words fully form. He laughs when you're about to say something funny. He feels uneasy when you're disturbed, even if you haven't said a word. This kind of mirroring and sensitivity comes from the emotional body, not the rational mind. It means his inner world has begun to connect with yours in ways he does not yet fully understand. Over time, this mirrored resonance may become more intense. He might find himself defending you, even when you're not around. He may feel a sense of pride in your accomplishments, or a quiet protectiveness when others speak about you. These are emotional responses rooted in the sense that you have become, in some way, a part of his internal reality. His ego may not have caught up with this realization, but his actions and reactions already demonstrate it. He begins to navigate the world as if part of him is tethered to you, as if your presence has become a quiet but persistent anchor in his daily thoughts. This kind of connection cannot be faked or forced. It is not based on conscious desire, but on something more instinctive and raw, the recognition of emotional compatibility that goes beyond surface attraction. When he mirrors you in this unconscious way, when he becomes captivated not just by how you look but by how you are, it is a sign that love is not only growing in him, it is already alive, working beneath the surface, shaping his perceptions and drawing him ever closer without him even realizing why. When a man is more in love with you than he realizes, one of the clearest signs is his sudden and unguarded emotional vulnerability in your presence. This vulnerability does not arrive with intention or strategy. It slips through in moments when his usual defenses fall away, when something in your presence bypasses his need for control. He may not consciously choose to open up, but he finds himself sharing thoughts, memories, or fears he typically keeps hidden. These disclosures often catch him off guard. He may even retreat afterward, unsure of why he let his guard down so easily. But the truth is that something deeper within him recognizes safety in you, and that sense of safety allows his soul to breathe without resistance. Emotional vulnerability is a rare gift, especially for someone who is used to hiding his inner world. In your presence, he may speak of childhood wounds, personal regrets, dreams that make him feel foolish, or insecurities he has never named aloud. He might mention things that left a mark on him, relationships that shaped him, decisions he still questions, fears he rarely voices. These are not casual confessions. They emerge not from a desire to impress, but from a sense that you see him in a way others do not. Your attention and acceptance become a mirror in which he can finally face parts of himself he normally avoids. He may not recognize these moments as significant, but they mark a shift in his emotional structure. He becomes less filtered, more spontaneous, less calculated in how he presents himself to you. His language softens, his tone shifts, his eyes hold contact longer than usual. All of these are subtle indications that something within him feels disarmed. You create a space in which authenticity feels not only possible, but involuntary. Often, after such moments, he may seem confused or withdrawn. That confusion is not about regret, it's about unfamiliar emotional territory. He is confronting a part of himself that rarely comes to the surface, and he does not yet have the words or understanding to explain what is happening. He may rationalize the vulnerability afterward, telling himself it was just a passing moment, or that he was tired. But a deeper part of him remembers it. These moments become emotional anchors, shaping how he sees you and what he feels around you. In some cases, he may try to downplay the significance of what he shared. He might joke about being too serious, or brush it off with humor. But even in these attempts to minimize the moment, the emotional depth remains. You will feel it in the silence that follows, in the look that lingers after the laughter, in the shift in energy that neither of you can fully explain. He might not say the words, but his soul has begun to trust yours, and trust, in this sense, is not built through conscious choice. It emerges from a deeper recognition that your presence allows him to feel seen, without being judged. This vulnerability is a form of intimacy that predates romantic declarations. It means that he is letting you into his emotional core, even if he doesn't yet realize what that means. He might not call it love. He might not understand it as love. But love, especially the kind that roots itself in the unconscious, often begins with this kind of openness. Quiet, raw, and unplanned. It is through these unguarded moments that his soul begins to form a bond with you, one that he may not fully grasp, but one that is already changing how he feels, how he relates, and who is becoming in your presence. When a man is more in love with you than he consciously understands, one of the strongest indicators is the emergence of subtle anxiety whenever he is around you, or even when thinking about you. This anxiety is not the kind that stems from fear or discomfort with your presence. It's rooted in the unfamiliar intensity of the emotions he is beginning to feel. His unconscious knows there is something powerful building within him, something that challenges his sense of control, identity, or past emotional conditioning. He might not recognize these feelings as love yet, but his body and behavior begin to respond, as if he's standing on the edge of something transformative. This anxiety can show up in many quiet ways. He may seem tense during your conversations, fidgeting with his hands or avoiding eye contact for too long. He might rehearse his words in his head before speaking, or overanalyze what he said after the moment has passed. You might notice him acting differently around you compared to how he behaves with others, more guarded, more formal, or even more awkward. These shifts in behavior are not because he is uncomfortable with you, but because he is unprepared for the depth of emotion he's feeling. His conscious mind has not caught up with the unconscious realization that you matter more than he thought. In many cases, he might try to appear unaffected, as if your presence doesn't faze him. But the effort he puts into appearing casual is itself a signal. He wants to maintain a sense of emotional safety, but the closeness he feels with you destabilizes that safety in ways he can't quite explain. His emotional body is reacting to the growing connection, causing a kind of cognitive dissonance between what he believes he should feel and what he has actually experienced. This internal split creates tension, and that tension shows up as nervousness, inconsistency, or even avoidance. Sometimes, this anxiety takes the form of him pulling away at odd times. You may have shared a beautiful moment, something meaningful, honest, or intimate, and then suddenly he becomes distant or distracted. This retreat is not rejection. It is his psyche attempting to recalibrate. Emotional closeness can be overwhelming when someone hasn't fully accepted the feelings driving it. He might need space, not because he wants to leave you behind, but because he's trying to understand what is happening inside him. His feelings are running ahead of his logic, and that imbalance creates a pressure he doesn't know how to manage yet. This emotional anxiety may also show in how much effort he puts into managing your perception of him. He might try too hard to impress, overcompensate with humor, or act indifferent to protect his vulnerability. You might find him seeking validation in small ways, checking how you respond to his messages, fishing for compliments without being obvious, or comparing himself to others you spend time with. Underneath these behaviors is a quiet fear that the emotional stakes are rising, and he doesn't know if he's prepared to face them. Love that grows without full awareness often triggers this kind of emotional turbulence, especially in someone who is used to keeping their feelings tightly contained. Even his moments of withdrawal carry emotional weight. The fact that he's nervous, unsettled, or hyper-aware of how he interacts with you speaks to the depth of what he is experiencing. His anxiety is a mirror of his emotional investment. It signals that something within him recognizes your significance. Though he may not yet label it as love, his psyche is already reacting to you as if you are deeply important. The subtle tension, the effort to maintain composure, and the slight stumbles in his usual confidence are all signs that he is emotionally stirred in a way that both excites and terrifies him. When a man is more in love with you than he consciously realizes, one of the most profound indicators can be found not in his actions during the day, but in the subtle ways you begin to appear in his inner world, through dreams, imagination, or quiet reflections he doesn't fully understand. These internal experiences are not fantasies created for pleasure or escape. They are often symbolic messages from his unconscious mind. While his rational self may not yet accept or even acknowledge his feelings, the deeper layers of his psyche begin to express the emotional truth he is not yet ready to admit. In dreams, you may show up not always as yourself, but as an image, a sensation, a feeling that carries your essence. You might appear in situations that have emotional weight, or in moments that reflect longing, safety, conflict, or desire. These dream encounters are not merely random. They represent how his unconscious is processing your presence in his life. He may dream of protecting you, searching for you, speaking with you in ways he cannot manage when awake. The symbolism of dreams allows his heart to express what his mind still resists. Even if he doesn't tell you about these dreams, they affect him deeply. He wakes up carrying a feeling he can't explain, a trace of emotional connection that lingers longer than any conscious thought. These inner appearances are not limited to sleep. They also emerge in quiet moments, when he's walking alone, driving, listening to music, or simply sitting in silence. His mind may wander to you unexpectedly, not in a deliberate or obsessive way, but as a gentle pull he cannot ignore. Your image surfaces when he feels uncertain, when he's in need of comfort, or when something beautiful stirs his soul. He may imagine conversations with you, moments that haven't happened but feel real, as if a part of him is preparing to bridge the emotional distance between you. These experiences are not fantasy in the shallow sense. They are emotional rehearsals, inner expressions of an emerging bond that his conscious self is not yet ready to name. He may find himself thinking of your voice, the way you speak, the subtle expressions on your face. These memories replay not because he's trying to hold on to them, but because they've become rooted in his emotional memory. His inner world begins to build a place for you, an invisible emotional space that you occupy more and more, often without his awareness. He might not say that he misses you, but he will feel an emptiness in moments when your presence is not near. He might not admit that he is emotionally affected, but you will begin to influence his moods, his thoughts, even his decisions. Sometimes these inner experiences stir confusion. He may wonder why he dreams of you, why your voice echoes in his thoughts, or why something as simple as your name can shift the energy in his chest. These questions begin to press on the walls of his ego. He may not yet label what he feels as love, but his inner world has already begun to bond with you. The psyche knows long before the intellect does. It communicates through symbols, through repeated imagery, through emotional resonance that cannot be rationalized away. What's most powerful about these internal experiences is that they are involuntary. He cannot summon or stop them at will. They happen to him. They rise from a depth that holds truth beyond logic. When you begin to appear in these hidden realms of his inner life, it means something essential is unfolding. His heart is reaching toward you in ways his mind has not yet accepted. The soul rarely announces its love with clarity. It whispers, it dreams, it imagines, and in doing so, it reveals what even he may not yet be able to say aloud. What begins as silence, hesitation, or contradiction often holds more truth than spoken declarations. When a man is more in love with you than he knows, the signs are hidden in the fragments. His unconscious gestures, his inconsistent behavior, the way he mirrors your soul, the vulnerability that slips through without warning, the dreams he cannot control. His conscious mind may still be searching for clarity, but his inner world already knows. Love, in its truest form, does not always arrive with certainty. It often unfolds in the quiet collision between what is felt and what is feared, between what is hidden and what longs to be seen. And in those subtle, sacred signs, he's already telling you everything.